Okay, so our first item is the auctions team, which will be addressed by Cassidy. Over to you.
Cool. Thanks, Kate. I will start by talking about the Polkadot auctions. We're going to be publishing our plan and some more details for that, maybe today, so keep your eyes peeled. Maybe I'll just share my screen super briefly. So this is our home for learning about the Centrifuge Parachain on Polkadot. We're super excited about this. We really think that Centrifuge as a parachain is going to be the home for real world DeFi on Polkadot. And what we're going to announce more officially today, hopefully, is that we're going for batch 2. And this will be, those auctions start December 23rd. So that means we'll be opening the crowd loan shortly before that. If you want to find out a little bit more about the Centrifuge Parachain, you can come to this page, centrifuge.io/parachain. We'll be having a lot of the same rewards that we had for Altair. So we'll have lots of great bonuses, including an early bird bonus, referral bonuses, and maybe some new interesting things there as well. And I think just to say a word as to why we're so interested in becoming a parachain and excited about the Polkadot ecosystem is really that we're looking forward to the integrations that we can have with the other projects that are going to be building on Polkadot and existing as parachains. These are just a couple of examples, but Akala and using their stablecoin AUSD is something that I think can really help grow Centrifuge Chainlink. It would be another stablecoin that we can use within the system to fund different assets. And we think that working together with Akala is just going to help grow Polkadot DeFi ecosystem exponentially. Another really cool use case that we're looking forward to is all the projects that are going to be going live on Moonbeam. So Moonbeam makes it much easier for dApps that are on Ethereum to really quickly and easily move over to the Polkadot ecosystem. So that'll be things like Sushi and Aave and more projects from Ethereum that are coming over to Polkadot, and they can get spun up super quickly. And I think what this means for Centrifuge is that it'll help us scale much more quickly once we become a parachain, being able to integrate with these different projects and also continue to be bridged to Ethereum like we are today. So yeah, that's just a word about our excitement for the Polkadot auctions that are coming up. Then I would say in terms of Altair and where we're sitting at right now, the next big upgrade that we're looking forward to and want to spend a little bit of time talking about is governance on chain on Altair. So let me see if I could just present this so you can see it a little bit clearer. So what that means is that we'll be activating the transactions on chain that will allow users to participate in governance on Altair. So that includes, first of all, electing a council, the Altair Council. And what we wanted to briefly talk about is you and your participation there. We have a wonderful governance forum, gov.centrifuge.io. And if you're interested in being in the Altair Council, that is where you should go and note down that interest for everyone else in the community. So we'll be probably providing more, written down details about this for people that aren't in this call and also to give a little bit more context there. But essentially, we really love the community to participate in Altair more and more, and would love to see you community members showing your interest in joining the Altair Council, telling us why you'd be interested, and us meaning like all the other Air token holders, right? That will be voting for you to enter the Altair on-chain council. So the first step there will be getting this on-chain council in place. And from there, being able to have our first governance decisions by Air token holder vote, which will be, removing the pseudo key on Altair and looking forward to future functionality on Altair like NFT Studio. Yeah, and so that's something that we can expect probably in around 2 weeks from now. And what's going to happen before we move forward with that governance upgrade is something that you guys have probably been paying attention to, are the Air claims. So the update there from our side is that our engineers have finally found a solution there, definitely with the help from the Parity team. For context, this was an issue that we encountered with the upgrade to Substrate version 9.12. And this is an issue that several other projects have been dealing with as well. Unfortunately, we were the first chain to upgrade directly to that version, so we encountered this issue first. But now we found a solution, so those Air claims can be expected to go live on Monday. I know some of you have been waiting super patiently for that, so thanks for your patience there. And then in addition to the Air claims for users that contributed KSM in the crowdloan, later on next week potentially, or very shortly after this first batch of Air claims, the coinless users that submitted their addresses can also expect to claim their Air tokens on chain. And so we'll definitely provide more details there as well in the coming days. So from there, I'd like to open it up to any questions that you have. Maybe I'll just take a look at the chat as well super quickly if anything else came up. Okay, I don't see anything specific. I don't know if anyone wants to unmute themselves and just jump in with any questions there.
Ron, are you asking a question?
No.
I saw earlier there was a comment on like people supporting the decision to go for number 2, batch 2. I wondered if anyone wanted to comment on that and give some more context on why you think that's a good call.
I think hopefully the announcement post that we published will also give a little bit more context for you there on why we decided to go for batch 2. But it's definitely for us a lot more about those integrations that I just talked about. And those projects are going to be going live in batch 1, and those are the projects that we are really looking forward to integrate with. And so for us, it just makes sense to wait for them to go live and be able to hit the ground running with those integrations once we go live.
I have a quick question. This is Jonathan. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so really exciting with what's going on in the ecosystem and all the parachains coming out. I'm just wondering, like, how much of this are you seeing a redundancy in the chains, and how much of it do you think is going to be like with some of these auctions that there's just going to be kind of like a saturation, or too many of these chains are competing for the same piece of the pie, or kind of like the same niche, if you will, or vertical. So like obviously DeFi is hot right now. So it seems like, the first 3 or 4 parachain winners, or the ones that are constantly falling in the, top 5 in the auctions, are always like DeFi. So I guess my question is, where do you see that going? And it seems like the obvious is, it's going to go DeFi to NFT to metaverse and kind of follow the Ethereum pattern. Do you feel like maybe there's just too much going on within each vertical, or do you feel it's a good balance right now?
I actually think that, I mean, the reason that I think it's DeFi is that this is really a building block for all of the other interesting use cases that we are going to see that use these layer ones. So I think it sort of makes sense that, like, for example, for us, we need that stablecoin to go live so that Centrifuge could work, right? So I wouldn't necessarily say it's oversaturated right now. It's more that, like, there are these projects that are providing real building blocks that projects like us can actually start building on top of and use. So I think there's that. And then there's also, I think, the fact that the space has been growing so incredibly quickly recently that I think there's more than enough space for projects to come in, even when there's a bit of redundancy. And I think that's actually a healthy thing, because then that encourages competition and hopefully things get done a little bit better, more efficient, in more innovative ways. And I think we're seeing a lot of that and pushing the envelope in the Polkadot and Kusama ecosystems. But I would say where I agree is if we're going to start seeing more and more innovation from here, like once we have these building blocks, we continue to see that sort of growth. And yeah, I think time will tell. We're definitely hoping to push the envelope there for sure and continue innovating.
Right. Yeah, it's just with some of these stable coins, I'm sure you guys see it. You know, you have the algo stables, you have the stables that are actually backed by real reserves. Then you kind of have like the hybrids, like DAI. I guess my question is more: is AUSD going to be the stable? Is it kind of like, is that the decision, or are there going to be other variations? Like, you know, we're involved in the Terra Cosmos ecosystem, and there, you know, everybody knows that, you know, Terra USD, that's the stable coin, the algo stable coin for that ecosystem. So is it a situation where AUSD is going to be the stable coin that everything's built on? Or is it going to be a situation where there's just going to be a bunch of, you know, different stable coins like you see in the Ethereum ecosystem being built, and then there's just like yield farming all over? No, I'm not necessarily against that. I think it's good for decentralization, but I'm just trying to get an idea of where we're headed.
I mean,
I
so far it
can maybe
like...
jump in, Cassidy.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, the stablecoin situation in Polkadot, I mean, even on Ethereum, it's kind of like unknown what is going to happen, and there's still so much movement. So like, I would remember we're really all just speculating. I think in Cosmos, Terra is the first one, and that's why they have a head start. But like, even there, I would expect probably to come for alternative models to come up. I mean, the centrifuge centric answer, like I could say, is like, for us, it doesn't really matter that much. I think there will always be like fiat backed stable coins like USDT and USDC. And then there will be, yeah, like the other categories that you mentioned. And there's definitely like obviously very fierce competition in like both on Kusama and on Polkadot for like what is going to be the dominating one. You also see like on Ethereum, there's now Min, and so that will change a bit. But the thing for us, and like maybe this is why we're like not as affected by all of this, or it's harder for someone to just come and copy what we're doing, is that like there's a lot of like real world lift that has to happen for like centrifuge assets to come on chain, and that's a lot harder to replicate, right? Like there's it's easy to copy code and try to move liquidity over and sort of get into these crazy yield farm battles that we've been able to just sort of like stay outside of. And so for us, like we're sort of like looking to see, trying not to overpay, trying to like make sure we build a sustainable, like user base, both on like the borrower side and on the lender side, and then like we can integrate with whatever stablecoin there is out there in the end. I think Akala is like personally has been, my opinion is they've been sort of the longest in the ecosystem, have a head start, will probably come out very strong and have like a lot of the risk management, the like sort of onboarding process, like the work done there that maybe others are still catching up a bit. And that's probably gonna be a promising one for us to look at first.
Okay, and sorry guys, last question. Sorry to dominate the conversation with questions. So do you foresee a fiat on and off ramp into AUSD, like relatively soon, like immediately? What's the outlook there?
I would have to ask the Akala team as well, but I'm pretty sure they're working on exchanges and market makers sort of to provide liquidity and fiat on off ramps for AUSD, and that's obviously something that's very important for us. I remember 2 years ago when we started working with DAI, the fiat on off ramp was one of our biggest headaches. It's gotten a lot better. It's still hard, but it is it's going to happen sooner or later. And this is one of the things we want to make sure that like is well established within Polkadot before we really do anything in that ecosystem, because without it we can't really do it. And so to come back to earlier slot or later slot, going for an earlier slot when this stuff isn't ready yet for us makes no sense, because we're just overpaying for something that we effectively can't use.
Well, thanks, Lucas, and thanks for the questions, Jonathan. Cassidy, there's just one question that came up in the chat that perhaps you could spend a minute on, which is what tasks and duties will be expected of Altair council members.
Yeah,
and then we'll move
I think
on.
Christian responded as well that we'll definitely publish more details in this forum post really shortly. But essentially, it's what you already see on Centrifuge chain, that council members are responsible for proposing democracy referenda to air holders. So that will primarily in the beginning be things like runtime upgrades, but it could also be things like extending the collator set, or even things like determining the reward rates on Altair, different things like this. The council is responsible for proposing those. Those proposals can also come from the community, but the council is just that extra vote of confidence, I would say, that when this proposal is coming from the council, it shows the community that this is something that was thought through, and when the majority of the council members are actually proposing this, and actually changes and makes it easier for this proposal to go through on-chain governance. So it will be important for these council members to be able to be in like the Discord governance channel, paying attention to the different things that come up. So it wouldn't necessarily be like super hands-on, full-time sort of work being on the Altair Council, but just generally being a part of the community and being aware of what's going on and being able to participate in those votes on chain. And I think then I will hand it off to you, Lucas, to go into our next segment talking about governance of CFG rewards.
I'm only on my phone, but because we touched on the governance topic, I don't know, Kate, if you're able to get this slide up with the governance process, would it make sense to touch it briefly, or should we go straight into CFG rewards?
I think we just can go straight in. I've got the slides up on, the first slide, CFG rewards, which has our goal there. So if you want to kick it off.
So one of there's like two large governance topics that are determined by token holders today. First of all, runtime upgrades that just sort of touch the overall functionality of the chain. So like any new functionality we add, runtime upgrades to upgrade the substrate version, but also like NFT Studio, for example, will be added to a runtime upgrade, right? And the other thing is the CFG rewards program. So a way for the protocol to give early users of TinLake an incentive and a reward, basically a way for them to get CFG so they can then become active participants in the network, and the way for them to get CFG. So going to the next slide. Maybe quick, like a few numbers of the program to date. We've allocated, the chain has minted 12 million CFG to both asset originators and issuers, but also LPs, so investors in liquidity providers. We've sort of tuned this over the past. The program has now been live in this form for a year, and there were 5 council decisions or sort of governance decisions initiated by different members of the community. I've put a few forward. I think Ash put a few forward of sort of updating them as like rewards needed to be minted, and sort of like we saw reasons to adjust the reward rate. Currently, the reward rate is at like 0.00064 CFG per DAI invested per day. So the way the rewards work is sort of, as long as you have an active balance in TinLake pools, you can get a certain number of CFG for each DAI that you have invested every day. So the longer you stay in pools, the more rewards you earn, and it is sort of dependent on the value of the tokens that you hold. And so we want to sort of now this being like a year old and Centrifuge growing, and also like sort of more like new protocols going live that will integrate TinLake, specifically Aave, but also Maker, who we've been live with for a while, and we've had sort of this conversation about what to do with CFG rewards for Maker in the past. With that in mind, like we want to sort of discuss like what key parameters for the CFG rewards should be and how we update them. And I think there's a few factors or sort of dimensions. Right now, the rewards are just equally going, so the same reward rate for both like junior and senior investors, which is a bit odd given the risk profile of junior investors is very different than of senior investors. And you could argue that by providing liquidity to the protocol in the junior tranche, they obviously take much more risk. They have to do more do more work in deciding where to provide liquidity, how to interact with these pools. So this is one sort of friction that came up in the reward program as it stands today. Another factor is just sort of like what the sort of annualized rate is in respect to like the reward rate in other protocols. Obviously, with the CFG price fluctuating, with the market overall fluctuating, there's always a bit of tuning that we can do there. There's also sort of like a target issuance for the network overall. So what we want to, sorry for the background noise, but what we want to do with these rewards, obviously, is give a certain fraction of the network to our users. And there's a discussion of like what percentage that should be. And that basically is like the tokens that are issued, that are minted to give to rewards recipients. That is then causing inflation, right, for everybody else. And so there's a trade-off there, that we don't want to have too much inflation, but we also obviously want to encourage users to join and sort of provide liquidity. And then the third one, the last one, the fourth one, I mentioned on the beginning, with Aave going live. Aave has a way to give liquidity rewards to Aave users. What they've done on L2s and in other places where they've launched markets is actually they've partnered with these L2s and given out rewards sometimes in both Aave tokens, but also in the native tokens. So for example, you could get Matic rewards on Polygon. And that's something that we have the option of doing with the Aave real-world asset market, that if the token holders decide that they want to sort of like reward those users as well, we can do so. With Maker, the situation is a bit more complicated, but I think it's also something we should discuss. So those are sort of the different dimensions where I think a refresh and sort of like a broader discussion around rewards is in order. And I wanted to like invite interested community members, stakeholders, so asset originators, token holders, LPs, so investors, to join this discussion. And help us figure out what a good way forward is that helps us achieve this goal.
Yeah, thanks, Lucas. So obviously, Lucas has just talked through quite a lot of quite complex factors that need to be taken into account when we govern CFG rewards. But I'm just really curious to hear from some of you who are here with us tonight, who have perhaps participated in some of the governance before, whether that's off-chain or on-chain, or generally, if you're just thinking about this topic and you're checking in on the forum sometimes. I'm interested in what you think about when you think about governing CFG rewards. I mean, is there, there's obviously an element for many people on like, what is my return? I wonder if people are thinking about, the long-term stability of the protocol. Curious if anyone wants to input with what they think about when, coming up against the subject of CFG rewards and governance. Maybe Chris, yeah?
Oh, sorry, it's Robert or Omega Fatty Acids here, sorry. Hey,
Omega Fatty Acids, feel free.
I guess the basic question I had was, so like what exactly goes into the sort of manual tuning of the rewards that have been decided by governance? How is that tuned exactly? I mean, like, is it arbitrary, or is it based on price and sort of balanced out in that way? And also, and if so, I mean, is there potentially a way to automate that, or to like have some sort of formula that makes sense going forward?
It's definitely not arbitrary. I mean, we sort of like always, and maybe like the governance process has always been sort of first a request for comment in the community that can be really initiated by anybody to see if there's a consensus on how rewards should be adjusted. Generally, how it works is like there's a proposal to mint rewards. So like usually it was like 1 million or 2 million at a time. And whenever those expire, in theory, the program runs out and it needs to be funded again. And so whenever it's funded, there's a natural point to change the rate, but it can, and change the parameters, but it can also be at any other point in time. And so we can't really easily make it dependent on like the CFG token price, or like the other, like if you try to like feed information programmatically into it of like how other yields are looking, because that sort of becomes technically challenging very quickly, because you need to find a way to bring this like price data or like other data on chain. So you end up building oracles, and sort of the overhead for that infrastructure is just like very high. So probably for now, it's like, it's going to be hard to try to react to like day-to-day changes. And whenever we were making these decisions, sort of my recommendation to token holders and how I would sort of argue for them is to try to make sure that we make something that works for the next couple of weeks, and find like sort of a middle ground, because doing so on a daily basis or like live is just too complex.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I guess it makes more sense to just kind of take a look at it periodically and take into account, those things you mentioned, like inflation and so forth.
Can I jump in with a quick question?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the token rewards are, I think, as we've seen across parts of DeFi, really interesting for kind of just bootstrapping growth. And I think it's working really well for Centrifuge. One comment on Maker and Centrifuge. I think, Maker, Lucas, I think you had a blog post once about how maybe Centrifuge and Maker could align interest by having some of their tokens in each other's treasury, maybe with a very long-term lockup. That's something that could be explored potentially with other projects like Aave. And then one other idea I'm curious if there's been any discussion on is incentivizing people just KYCing and setting up a wallet through Securitize. That's kind of like a step one hurdle that, it's nice to have the rewards ongoing for investing in these pools, but and maybe this is something that could happen with Aave too, with their pro coming out, just having some sort of program to maybe incentivize people to just even get a wallet that can invest. So I'm curious if you guys have discussed anything like that.
I think it's a good idea. We haven't discussed it. Do you think it needs to be like both, like, is it just KYC, or should we make sure people actually go through and follow through with an investment? Because I'm a little afraid that like just doing KYC is going to be like, it's hard to like exploit, but you can still just get like your entire family to just do this, and if the reward's big enough, then that could be a concern. But I don't know. Yeah, maybe there's a good way we can make the onboarding, the initial hurdle, a bit easier to get over with it.
Yeah, and maybe there's a way to, without it being too difficult technically, to KYC a wallet, but also kind of have a second condition where the wallet has to invest like X number of DAI in a pool before it can claim those rewards.
Cool, lots of good ideas there, Brett. Maybe you'd be interested in jumping into the working group on this. And I think the working group will be in a Discord channel on our Discord, and hopefully we'll be posting a lot of discussion threads in the governance section of the forum so that we can dig into some of these ideas and some of these challenges in a lot more detail. I just want to see if there's a couple more questions. Also, if we've got any issuers or asset originators on the call, if you want to talk about the rewards and how you see it, that's also really welcome. But Christian, did you want to share how you think about this?
Yeah, of course, it's important to have a balance because the CFG reward dropped quite low from the beginning compared to last October when the revolving pools in Tin Lake started. Of course, it was important to have to distribute a lot of tokens to the community at the beginning, but it was clear for everyone in the team that this cannot be sustainable for a longer period of time. And it's good. Of course, it's good to have tokens distributed, but it has to be balanced. Otherwise, we have hyperinflation for centrifuge tokens, and no one needs too many tokens in circulation. So maybe when the transactions go up with more traffic on the chain, then more fees are burned, or more CFG fees are burned, and maybe we can adapt and adjust the CFG rewards again, that it at least stays at the same rate. But that's up to the governance, of course, and up to the community. So let's see how it develops in the future.
Yeah, nice one. Thanks, Christian. Any last comments on the subject before we move on?
I have a question. Oh.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering why it's necessary to reward asset originators. I mean, isn't there a whole incentive just getting being able to borrow money that they wouldn't otherwise be able to get through banks? Yeah, that's always been a source of confusion to me.
I think it is a good question, and we've actually already, like in previous updates, we're discussing about lowering them. Like to give like maybe a few reasons why we did it in the beginning. Like DAI was extremely volatile. Like they're paying at the moment, because we're still on Ethereum and gas is just insane there. They're actually paying thousands a month in gas, thousands of dollars a month in gas to sort of like run these pools. And so that was a way to sort of like just make sure that like launching these pools isn't too much of an investment, right? Because a lot of times these pools, like it takes a bit of time to grow to a size where it actually becomes profitable even for the asset originators. Just because the money borrowed is maybe not enough by itself. But it is getting a lot better, I think, and we're solving some of these problems, right? Like DAI exchange rate, fiat on off ramps, like the whole legal setup. So we can definitely do that. That was like one of the ideas in the past, or sorry, that we discussed, and was to see if we would, like, instead of rewarding AOs, like a lot of times these AOs have junior investments as well, and so they're getting rewards from that. And if that is like enough, then yeah, possibly get rid of AO rewards altogether. It is actually something that I was going to throw in as a proposal as well, and wanted to see how others feel about it. And I hope we'll get some asset originators to weigh in on that as well.
Mm.
Yeah, I can make a comment on that. This is Brian Maloney from Harbor. We're one of the pools on Tin Lake. Yeah, I think to Lucas's point, you know, as we've seen, gas fees have been at historical highs. I can speak from our perspective. We have quite a granular portfolio with a lot of transactions. Just because of the liquidity, it's just short-term asset, 90 days, 120 days. So there's a lot of movement. So, you know, the gas fees that we incur on a regular basis makes this day-to-day operation not really profitable, to be honest with you. And at the same time, the assets that we're originating and delivering to investors, we have a very tight spread. You know, the reason I think all of us are involved in this is, you know, Ron, to your point about us not being able to access capital elsewhere, that's not the case. You know, we are all part of this project because we see the long-term strategy and vision, that this is the future of money. So, you know, I think that we're working together towards this same goal, towards this same mission. And you know, the CFG rewards are definitely a consideration that we take, but I think we're really trying to be a part of the ecosystem to build this long term. So just wanted to make those comments.
Well,
So
thanks,
if-
Brian. Sorry, Ron, we're going to have to wrap up this section. Do you mind just
Okay.
putting your response as a comment in the chat?
Sure.
And then let's jump into this in a lot more detail on the forum and in the Discord. Thanks, Brian, for that comment. And curious, to see where this goes. But for now, we've just got 15 minutes left. So I'm going to hand over to our adoption team, Colin and Anna, to give a bit of input around pools. Tin Lake pools. Anna, are you starting now?
I think Colin will start.
Yep, I will jump in. So I think we wanted to spend a little time here at the end just talking a little bit about kind of the state of things maybe on the pools side of our business, of which Brian Maloney is one. I think maybe to kick off, what we want to end today's conversation with is maybe some thoughts from the community and kind of invite the community in here to help us think about how we set course for 2022 and get your input into some of the, I guess I could say struggles, but I would say more opportunities that we have in front of us as DeFi matures. The market is obviously in a great place right now. And we're trying to think about our strategic next steps as a team and as a protocol. And I think as we do that, it's I've been inside of the core team now for a little over 6 months. And I would say we're absolutely at an inflection point where what we've done historically, although a great story throughout 2022, I think in order for us to achieve the heights that a lot of the people here have for the project and what we're trying to all build together, I think we need to think a little bit differently. And so we want to kind of invite the community here to help us think about that. We'll talk through a couple of questions in a minute, but before we do that, Anna will give a quick update on kind of the state of our current pools and where we stand. And then maybe we'll open it up for questions and some context around what we're trying to do with our pools as we try and support them to help them grow and to help real world assets grow in DeFi. So Anna, over to you.
Thank you. Yes, so today I thought I'll give you a little update, like how our pools are doing on Tin Lake, which is like the core product. And we just passed 38 million in TVL today. And one of the latest updates, which would be really good for future investors, or if you haven't even looked at pools, is that we relaunched our onboarding flow. So now onboarding as an investor is much more smoother and better, and the UI and UX is just way more improved. Additionally, we have also some like chorus, they were on the last community call. They will be start looking at starting a pool. Then we also have another new pool live, which is like the Fortuna Phi 2 series, which just recently got live. And then also we have the other pools that are like constantly growing. And I think, Brian, it was really great that you made the comment. The current struggle that pools have is really the gas fees that are like crazy high, and still trying to use the product or maintaining like the day-to-day business activities while like Ethereum price is going up to 5K. Yeah, so I think this is the most like recent updates. I'm having a look at the questions right now. Okay, Ron, what's the timeline for transitioning Tin Lake over to the Polkadot ecosystem? So we haven't published like a specific timeline yet, but it will happen not this year, but mostly in 2022. Not sure yet if it will be like the first quarter, second, but yeah, we will let you know as soon as we know internally like how our timelines look like. And yeah, triple digit TVL. Right now, it's like we had initially thought that we might reach it by the end of this year, but we focus more now on like quality over quantity. So that's like our focus. Or Colin, do you want to add something to the triple digit TVL question?